4 years ago, we had the honor of having Bruce Linton come to the summit to educate us on the potential of cannabis, what it has in the region. Last year, we talked to Bruce and his staff, and he said, no, let's wait another year. There's going to be big change. Big change did happen on October 17th, 2018 of this year, where recreational marijuana became legal. For Bruce, this is just the beginning. I'd like to call upon Bruce Linton to tell us what's next. Bruce? Thank you, sir.
Excellent. I think you kind of made part of that up. I think I was supposed to show up, and I didn't. No, that was a couple years ago. It was 3 years ago. I think I was supposed to show up, and I didn't. So I'm actually here because I still feel guilty. And when I say that, I actually took a red eye from Las Vegas last night so I could be here. And then I said, but I'm only coming here to present at 11 because I got to go home and have a nap because I have another event tonight. I hope you guys won't be offended, but we generally refer to this region as the Greater Smiths Falls area. And one of the rules, sort of, is people say, well, if I get a job in the tweed factory, do I need to move to Smiths Falls? And my answer is, well, if you want to be successful, yes, because you get a snow day like this. And then you call me and say, well, I'm going to be half an hour late. And then maybe like a week later, you know, your dog's sick and you're going to be half an hour late. On the third time, we just say, no need to come in. And it's not that we're mean, we're running a very regulated and controlled industry. And you can't stay half an hour late with a bunch of marijuana plants, right? So it's a very structured thing. So I think we've caused quite a few houses to be sold. But what I want to do is play a couple of videos because there's a lot of slides and presentations. So I have two videos. At the end of it, you guys will try and guess, maybe as part of your lunchtime homework, which one's entirely true. So why don't you hit those? Mark, what's the code again?
Bruce, same as last month.
420.
Can we change that sometime?
Nah.
I got some over in Saudi Arabia I want to get to. Thank you, my lord.
We got hundreds of thousands of those back there.
You ready for takeoff, baby?
Yes, sir.
Well, away we go.
Hey Vic, how are we doing on the count?
99,996. 99,997. 999. Oh no.
Dude.
I think I lost count.
No.
We're gonna have to start again.
No!
Flight 420, you're clear for takeoff.
LVS 420, ready to push off. The clones transfer to Columbia. See you in the sky.
Oh, man. You know what time it is? It's 4:20, baby. Columbia, y'all gotta wait. We'll get back.
Where's this not with the clone shipment?
I don't know.
So as he cues up that one, you recognized a couple of the characters. Everybody who's in there is internationally famous. There's a gentleman who we work with who's out of the Netherlands who had a TV show called Strain Hunter, and it's a big deal. So essentially every person in there, if you're on the inside of the cannabis story, got the real story, which is we're really hooked up with the best in the world. And what we're doing is taking plants produced in Smiths Falls and filling up a 1.7 million square foot greenhouse and a 1.3 million square foot greenhouse. And in Mirabel, Quebec, we had to do the same thing to fill up a 700,000 square foot greenhouse. And now we have all of our assets sort of in place and running. So the next one is actually the fake one. No, you got to pull it back to the start, I think. Okay, go ahead, start it. The most interesting thing that's going to happen on October 17th is how the world sees us. It starts at the center of Smiths Falls, and it goes out to all the places around the globe that you see.
Even though we've grown from 5 people, it'll be the same message that's been around the whole time.
People really believe in what we're doing, they're passionate about the company, and you can't achieve what we've achieved without having that kind of a culture.
We've filed a lot of patents. We've figured out a lot of things, and when you add a 0 to the scale, you change everything.
We're building on this massive scale, and we're going to take all of that learning and apply it to these other markets.
Before the country's thinking of doing it, they're already in that country helping them think about what they're going to do.
Canopy is on a roll. It has momentum.
The rest of the world looks at us and says, oh my God, we live in the Stone Age. Look at Canada's doing.
We have all of those pieces. We know how to build something quickly. We know how to build it right.
And the effect of that is they have a lot to learn and we have a lot to offer. Typically, the headline does not read, innovation initiated in Canada to lead the world. But when it comes to cannabis, it is.
For 5 years, this has largely been an exercise about credibility. When this all started, the idea that anything would be happening with cannabis anywhere was a big deal.
Then with Constellation, and we started looking at it and saying, well, why wouldn't we actually ask the New York Stock Exchange, would you like to have the first listed marijuana company on the New York Stock Exchange? And quite appropriately, their answer was no, of course not, that's a terrible idea. And Tim did a great job because he came up with one question I think actually changed everything. He said, well, what if a company listed on the New York Exchange bought us? Would they have to leave?
I got a call, and they said, congratulations, Tim. The board of directors for the New York Stock Exchange met just on Canopy, and you guys are in.
For us, it's this continual progression of building something that's not just a cannabis company, and everybody's proud of what we're accomplishing.
Canopy is the thing you buy stock in, and that's because it's very nice to be under a canopy. Tweet that says, come on board, we're going to welcome you, we're going to be capable and confident, but we're also still going to have fun. And then Spectrum says, we're all going to get old, a bunch of us are going to get sick in different ways. Whether it's the people who have to go through oncology or can't sleep, medical cannabis will no longer be a fake name. It'll be a real name because it will be medicinally validated, and there won't be anybody who says it can't do what we can make the claims it does.
Canadians have for many, many years been used to getting their cannabis from a guy behind a store. The only information you have is what that person gives you, and by definition, you can't trace it back, and that's going to change.
So October 17th, I think, is fairly easy for us.
You know, it's not necessarily about the first order or the second order, it's about the third order and the fourth order that a province makes and that retailers make. That we need to be ready, not just with product day one, but with product for 3 months in, 6 months in, and that we have a sales team that is out and ensuring the education happens, that people pick the right product.
And when you get your first experience, it's such a well-informed, positioned, curated, knowledge-driven education platform you've walked into. You're not going to walk away from that saying, wow, I got some dank kush. You're going to walk away from that saying, I got some great value. I actually appreciate how this works, and I trust them.
Think about the next year. It's building out the bench, the talent, the systems, allowing us to continue to scale up with the pace of activity that we have in the works.
We started as a medical cannabis company, and that has now spread into a recreational cannabis company, and we'll see animal products, and we'll see CBD-focused products, and then we'll see it across a bunch of regions.
We're not trying to tell people what to do or sell them anything. We're just giving them enough to think about that they have to actually think. And when they think, they might decide that cannabis could be helpful for their pet, maybe for them, maybe medically for somebody around them. Maybe it's a better option for them to socialize with. what we're trying to do is just make them think. And so that video was first played in a building. I haven't been in, so this week I was in Smiths Falls on Monday, and New York Tuesday, Wednesday, and Las Vegas Thursday, and here today. And when I left Smiths Falls on Monday, we were in the process of knocking down a building up at the corner that used to be called Shorewood Packaging. It is now called the Not There Anymore building, I bet. And the reason we had to knock it down, and it really bothered me, is because they put all of the utilities on the wrong side of the building. Because we got a 14-acre parcel of land, and where the building was situated, the building was in the wrong spot, and it was in the wrong place with the utilities. And by the time we fixed everything, it was going to actually take longer and cost more than knocking it down and putting it where we want it. And so that building's last use was playing that video. Because I decided this year we're going to have our AGM, our annual general meeting in Smiths Falls. And it's because we actually didn't need anybody's money anymore. And so I used to hold it in Toronto, and I taught everybody who came to the AGM that if you come to the AGM, you get a free tweed t-shirt. So when we have meetings, like, everybody shows up. In July, we had a special shareholders meeting, which means we need to officially have you vote in favor of something, but we already have all the votes, and we're telling you that it's passed for sure. But we have to have the event, even though it's a non-event. 300 people showed up, and they all went on bus tours, and a bunch went for lunch, and then the ones that came in September all went on tours of the Tweed Tour Center, and they saw this video, and we gave them shirts, and we gave them mugs, and we gave them actually Constellation, who are the guys who make Corona, all kinds of phone covers and stuff. But I said, if we want to actually have economic impact, we got to keep getting more dollars dropped through the system. And so that's why we said from now on our AGMs are in Smiths Falls. And people will keep coming, and I think if they're willing to go to Omaha, Nebraska to hear some old guy talk about why he buys insurance companies, surely to God they'll turn up for a cannabis AGM. But those are the sort of conscious things. So I'm going to walk through a few slides and tell you a little bit about how we think about things. And I think we're the first ever Smiths Falls headquartered company traded on the New York Stock Exchange. I'm not totally sure, but I think. Or maybe we're the first ever company headquartered in Smiths Falls traded on any exchange. And that's a big advantage over a branch plant. So I called the person who put the slides together because I looked at them like a half an hour ago and said, well, they're not quite right, but I'll update them to the crowd, but you got to update them in the system. This is who we are in Canada. But the company that started in Smiths Falls is in 12 countries. And in Canada, we're kind of coast to coast. There is no province which is selling legal cannabis that doesn't have us. We have about, depending on the province, 30 to 50% market share. What we focused on are the provinces that actually have stores. We really focus on that because when you go on a website and buy stuff, you're for sure going to make a mistake and get the wrong stuff. And if our stuff is what you bought and you bought the wrong stuff, you're going to blame me, even though I couldn't intercept the stupid decision you made. So why not go to a store where we can train staff and to make sure those staff don't let you think you're Snoop Dogg. That's where we've put our focus. And yesterday they put the announcement out for Ontario that there's going to be probably 250 stores quite quickly. And as a taxpayer in Ontario, I think it's actually a pretty prudent decision because we have to sell our cannabis to a warehouse. That warehouse will then push the products to stores, and those stores the province doesn't have to pay for building. And so that warehouse is going to be an extremely profitable warehouse. And the stores will be more numerous, and the province will have no capital tied up. And I think if people will lose their license by selling to anybody who's not over 19, they're probably going to ask everybody who comes in the store for the first 2 years for ID. Doesn't matter what you look like. And so I think that's going to work much better because there are a lot of places where criminals sell cannabis. And if we had 35 stores in a province where we have about 850 liquor stores, that was not going to work. And so we're going to see an evolution. But these are sort of the things we're doing and where we are. This is where a couple of things are wrong. I think when I bought the Hershey building, it was actually 472,000 square feet. We've added about 400,000 square feet. In fact, I think I'm almost at the point where I can't actually build more stuff on the property without building a parking garage. because we start to have too much coverage of the ground and not enough parking. And anybody who's been to our facility knows that our current primary problem is parking. We have across the street beside the police station about another 75,000 square feet, which is where we ship everything out of for the whole country. And then I described that thing up at the corner, which is going to become a bottling plant. And it's going to become a bottling plant because I think a lot of people would prefer to have a beverage. I'm not down on the beer guys, like we'll figure out how we put our stuff in your beer without alcohol. No alcohol and cannabis together, but I think there's a really socially normal way to consume an intoxicant, which makes you have a more relaxing, say, Thursday night. And it's usually in a bottle and it's usually shared in a glass. And if you can make something that has 0 calories and does not interact with any other medications you're on, I think that's going to have a very impactful outcome, and I think we'll have a very busy bottling line. But where we are is all across the country. And what it's added up to is almost 6 million square feet of assets in Canada for producing and selling cannabis. And it started with 168,000 square feet in Smiths Falls, because I didn't use all of the building. In fact, for the first 2 years, I was hoping any of you would have a good use for the balance of the building, because it was costing me a lot of money to store my boat. Like, you always need a new roof everywhere, and I think I probably bought the boat about 10 times over on the storage cost. But now I don't have a place to store my boat, actually. It's sitting, actually, now that I mention my boat, I think I was supposed to pick it up in, what's it called, Lens Cove. I'm pretty sure they're wondering why I haven't picked my boat up. Actually, I almost forgot to take it out of the water this year. I got so busy with stuff, this $5 billion thing and everything, and we were at the lawyer's office, and I looked out and I saw the Ottawa River and went, shit, I own a boat. So one of the things we want to do on economic development is bring tourism back. And so we opened up again, and I hope everybody comes in to take a look at it, what was the Hershey Walkabout. And all we preserved from what they had was the stair up and the exact walk area. And then we kind of upgraded and changed everything else. And the province has been pretty clear that if you produce product like we do, it'll be kind of like if you run a brewery, you can typically, or a wine, you can sell the farm gate or the store gate. Well, we're going to have the same thing for what we have. And so I think when you look at what we have as a tour, on the inside, we brought in a chocolate company, I think previously headquartered in Carleton Place, called Hummingbird Chocolate. And they had won a lot of awards and they needed to expand. So we said, why don't we just buy all the equipment, put you in the center of the walkway, and when people come, they can look at cannabis, learn about the science, the history, what it's about, see how it works on that outside wall, and on the inside, see you guys making chocolate in a very ethical way. And I didn't want to invite Hershey back because I think they pissed off a lot of people when they left. And so we just said, nope, can't have them. We got to have somebody, and it's more like us to go, what they do is they make these chocolate bars where they actually go meet the farmers who grow the beans. And then they meet the person who drives the truck. And everybody gets paid appropriately along the way. And the result is a bit more costly chocolate bar, but when you eat it, you can actually know that it's been done properly, ethically, and there's nobody who's been totally subordinated in some other country so that you got a cheap chocolate bar. And so that's kind of getting turned up in the middle. The eldest person so far that I met at the facility was 102. I was out there on a Sunday, and this lady comes in, and she has a walker, but she's kind of boogieing around, and she had seen so much on the news, she wanted to come see what was going on and how it was made. And so she got her daughter to bring her out. And like, when your mom's 102, you're not super young. So it was like, it was a pretty interesting tour. And she had a million questions on cannabis. And I think we've had more buses of people who are over 60 than under come. And we've had a lot of families come because, you know, we kind of refer to it, it's almost like swimming lessons for cannabis. If you don't teach your kids or grandkids about it, they're going to learn. Now you got to decide how they're going to learn. And if you bring them to the place that actually has the science and backs it up, talks about why this isn't a plaything, why it has a history, and why it's been, you know, treated the way it is, and why you should actually, you know, not play with it, but consider what it might be about, people bring their kids and they talk about it. And I think October 17th, the biggest thing I've gotten out of it is that it has caused conversations at the kitchen table to occur that should have been happening a long time ago. And it's called Conversations at Boardroom Tables to happen that should have happened a long time ago. And the rest of the world has not, they're starting to get it. What we didn't do on October 17th is legalize cannabis. That happened in 2001. What we decided to do is quit ignoring it and start regulating it and educating, because it exists everywhere in the world. I guarantee you can go to North Korea and they have cannabis. There's no place on the planet that doesn't have it. And the question is, why are they all ignoring it? Because when you ignore it, the beneficiary is the criminal. So, like, I don't care if people want it. I just want the taxes off of it, like one person's argument. I just want the criminals out of it. But it seems to be working. Tweed Collective, so you guys laughed at the 420 for the people not fully on the inside. 420, and by the way, I wasn't fully on the inside until I started this business, but 420 is the 20th day of the 4th month, so April 20th, or it's 420 in the afternoon, which has been a time or day when people protest the laws around cannabis and want them changed by consuming cannabis in public places. Now, once it was legalized, there's no point in having 420 anymore. So what we did is we said the Tweed Collective over the next 4 years will hand out $20 million to the communities in which we operate, with the objective of actually creating a bunch of torque on that money going through so that the communities all become better. And it's not because we're nice, it's because we're smart. If you're a smart company and you plan for 10 years, you make your communities better, because then you can attract more people to those communities. So it's actually just about that. And so far, so good. I keep track of a bunch of indices and a lot of stuff, but one of the things I keep track of is how many people came to work, took a job with us when it was a bad idea, who've now become millionaires. And it's a lot. Like, it's more than 100. And so this picture is kind of why I'm confused, because I'm kind of like a socialist that wants to drive a Jaguar. And what that means is I expect to do really well, but our culture doesn't want to leave anybody behind. Because if you do, it's, I don't know, I just don't get that. So we give everybody who comes to join, answers the phones, cleans the floors, they all get equity. And the effect of that is they're nicer when they answer the phone, floor is cleaner, people like it. I may have told you guys this one before, but when I got the Hershey factory, they had done a good job of turning all the plumbing off. And so we had no heat either. It was kind of an uncomfortable place to operate. And when I got there, one of the first things I did was begin firing the crew that was doing the work, and told them they couldn't also use the outhouse until they confirmed that the one they got from Ottawa was the closest place you could get a porta potty. And the reason was that I planned to hire a bunch of PhDs in 3 or 4 years, and there's no way they'd come to Smiths Falls unless we got the porta potty from as close as we could, because I assumed there was somebody who rented them, and if their business went better, they would spend more money, there would be better restaurants and more restaurants in Smiths Falls, and eventually in 3 years when I wanted to hire that PhD, they'd say, man, there's good restaurants here and I like the theater. And so they thought I was nuts, but it turns out there's a guy somewhere over towards Perth, I think it's called Lanark Septic or something. I should know. I've advertised for the guy every speech I've given, I think. We got him from him. And we still, every time I see a truck come on because it's a construction site, we're for sure getting them from him because his truck comes and cleans them out. And I think it works, but it made a very good example to everybody in the company, which is you don't start local later. And if you start local early, places get better. And now we have a lot of PhDs that work at the place. We do not provide or sell food in any building we have. We do not have cafeterias, we have rec rooms. If you want a quick lunch, buy bread and make a sandwich. If you want food, you have to buy it from whoever is a restaurateur in the local area. And the reason is, I'm not in the restaurant competing business. So why would I accidentally kill them? Because if I think we have about 800 or 900 people now in the company in Smiths Falls. If I take that cohort out of the lunchtime rush, that's bad. So we do not ever have a place that will sell food. Now, some people like to bring their food selling equipment from, if you're a local business and you have an extension of your restaurant and you want to put it on our property, we've had that. We provide them with free electricity and free water, but we don't compete with them. I promise there's only about 2 more slides, but I think if you're trying to think about what makes economic sense, anything you can do that's disruptive. Every time you disrupt something, you find something. And so I think the T in Tweed fits into a shirt that says disruptive, and all we do is we put the same stylized T in for the T in disruptive, because we are impacting with what we're doing how geriatric care occurs. So we announced about a month ago the Ontario Long-Term Care Association is doing a true 500-patient study with us to see how can they reduce the number of other medical ingredients that are used at long-term care facilities. Because if you give your brother, sister, mom, dad, whoever, care in these places, what happens is they get a bit anxious because they've been moved somewhere, so they get them sedated. They don't sleep super well. It's not really their place, so now they don't rest really well. The food's not totally there, so they don't eat really well, and they can often start getting smaller. And they're old, so they're creaky. They got some pain. And so when you drug them up, now they're quiet and sleepy, but they also sometimes seem like they're not all there. And we have a bunch of stuff that we're putting in trials. So we're doing a sleep trial. We're doing an anxiety trial in dogs, which will convey to humans. And I think we're going to disrupt that whole care area. But we're also going to disrupt sports recovery drinks. We're going to disrupt beverages that are alcoholic. We're going to disrupt all kinds of pharmaceutical areas, from co-treatment and oncology to generate an appetite to sleep to the list gets really long. And when you add it all up, all those markets that we're going to disrupt are about $500 billion a year spent. And so that's kind of why it works. And people just love a puppy, so I just put that on. Headquartered in Smiths Falls, we're now in 12 countries. We're the only company that's been approved and has shipped legally produced medical marijuana oils to the United States under DEA approval. We're the first company listed on the New York Stock Exchange. We're the first company to export to Germany. We've exported and have plants in a bunch of countries, as you can see with that symbol, and the list goes on and is growing. When I came to Smiths Falls, there was 3 countries on the planet thinking about managing this. Now there are 35. In September, Malaysia had a guy they caught who had cannabis, and what the normal rule was is you should actually give him capital punishment, and they were going to kill him. And then they said, you know what? Why exactly are we killing these guys with medical marijuana? Is that kind of what we want? So a primarily Muslim country with a 93-year-old leader said, don't kill the guy. Let's start working on managing medical marijuana. That is way bigger news than the Berlin Wall falling, because that means Southeast Asia and a whole demographic are actually having a conversation that 2012 I did not expect to occur. This is the estimates of our government as to, and CIBC, and 8 Capital, a few of them, what they think the value of the market is if we just got people to quit buying it from the illegal source. Don't invent anything, don't make it better, just regulate it. So all that market I talked about interrupting is above this. And I think you're going to see the illicit market in Canada shift pretty quickly, because what's happened now is increasingly they're going to say, well, the province is going to have the right to apply penalties to landlords or land ownership if you're running cannabis operations. So some of the places it's $250,000 a day if you're hosting somebody who's doing cannabis production. And you say, well, that's hard on the mom and pop growers, and that's where all those dispensaries are getting their stuff from. That story should start with once upon a time. It's not true. There is a very organized method by which the cannabis got to all those dispensaries, which is why if the police shut it down and took away 1,000 kilograms of their product yesterday, it could be full again the next day. So I think that little jig is going to end, and it's partially because the provinces get 2/3 of the tax money as well. So if you're a criminal, you're now taking away the state's money. There are real penalties and real jail time. So I think you're going to see a really rapid shift in Canada to a much more orderly system. And why you actually care is most of the cannabis that we get in Canada comes from the West Coast across. Most of the fentanyl and things like that often come in from Asia. And criminals, when they organize moving illegal stuff across the country, don't necessarily have it perfectly containerized. So when people talk about cross-contamination and stuff like that, it's because of supply chain. And when it arrives at the place in Gatineau to be broken up and redistributed, do you think they don't use a table for everything? So you just got to think it through and say, oh, yeah, I'm probably not in favor of that. So that's a nice little market if we can just clean up the criminality. So if you want, I have time if you have questions. But I think when I came here 4 years ago, it was Movember time. And I was trying to do Movember, and I explained that to you guys, because you could maybe see something that people at the back couldn't see it. I was trying Movember. I decided since that year that I would only be a sponsor for Movember. And so I've been a very good sponsor, but there's no way I'm trying that again. Anybody have a question? Are we good?
Okay, can I get?